All right. When you hear that new little music there, it's time. Well, it's time for the new hero in town, and that means it's time for Derek Baer with Bear Facts on Guns. And today, this is brought to you, of course, by GoldShieldToday.com. Gold Shield Services, heating, cooling, electric generators, indoor air quality, everything for your HVAC needs. 847-865-HVAC. GoldShieldToday.com. Not tomorrow, but today. Derek, good evening. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
So, hello, everyone. Hi, Kiki. Hi, Tony. Nice to see you, too. So, how's your week been?
Mine's been insanely busy. My week's been pretty much nonstop since Sunday. So This is actually kind of nice because now I get to sit here and listen to you talk about guns, one of my favorite topics, because I love going to the range. I have good times there. And you already said hi to Kiki, but you know Kiki pretty well.
Yeah, she's my wife. Yeah, and a big advocate, too. She actually didn't grow up with guns, kind of like me and you. She is a new gun owner. She's has her first firearm and kind of gone into the world of learning how to use it and how to be safe with it. I'm trying to get her on the show so she can talk about it, because I know there's thousands of people out there right now, especially that really could use some training. First gun owners and all that kind of stuff can be really scary. Firearms, guns, weapons, whatever you want to call them, is a big purchase. It's not something you should take lightly,
No, and even for me, I grew up with them, much like you. Mm-hmm. But when I decided to kind of get back into it, because when our first son was born, my wife said, "No, I don't want guns in the house." I'm like, "All right, fair enough." What I had at the time, I didn't really use and didn't really shoot anyway. So I'm like, okay, so it went. And then when he was old enough to get into it and he expressed an interest, I'm like, okay, hey, that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll get back into it with him and we'll, do some gun safety together and have a good time. And I love going to the range with him. And but other people, and he was a little apprehensive at first.
Sure.
And he was surprised at how loud they actually are.
Yeah.
Because I think he was expecting something like he'd seen on TV or played on a video game or what have you.
Yep.
And he's like, "Oh, these are actually really loud." And that's why we wear ear protection, bub. So, it's not, this is not like you're running around outside on Law and Order going pew, 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 pew.
Yep.
That's not how this works. So.
Yep. I think it's a huge bonding experience. So you touched a little bit here for a second, and I want to kind of dive more into that. But, it's as a father and son, or a mom and a daughter, or a mom and a daughter, and I don't want to put stigmas on this because anybody can own a gun and teach the other person, but it's a bonding experience for a parent. So I want to put that as my caveat to it. As a parent, to teach a child how to use a gun properly is actually a bonding experience for those individuals. Cleaning it, caring for it, preparing for it, understanding the consequences of using it, the consequences of using it appropriately, and the consequences of using it inappropriately. So that's kind of things that is why I love that we're able to talk about this right now. And it's a great time for the show because there's a lot of gun conversations. There's a lot of conversations around assault rifles. That's like the common word that gets thrown out so much right now, and it frustrates me so much.
Yeah.
It is. So I grew up in a really small town in New York, and I'm talking 2003, I graduated high school. So not that long ago. I'm a younger guy. I'm not, an older, generation. I would consider myself a younger, guy. 2003, I graduated high school, so 35 years old. In my high school, we had shotguns in our back of our windows of our cars. Literally driving to school, I had them planted on the back.
Yeah.
We'd go hunting after school. Heck, we brought them into school to literally show and tell my grandfather's ancient World War II, 30-06, on there as well. And nowadays, I can't even personally go into my own high school by myself with no firearms, not even personally, on there as well. So times obviously change, and there's a lot of reasons for that change. Some good, some bad. Obviously, Columbine really kind of changed the world when it came to gun conversations and gun laws, and how that kind of plays out as well. Same kind of situation for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got about 20 years on you, but
It's all just a number.
it's all just it's all just a number. But at the same time, I mean, I grew up in a suburb of Kansas City, on the Missouri side.
Yeah.
And where I went to school, and I actually went to 3 different high schools, and every single one of them was the same.
Sure.
Student parking lot. In the back of every pickup, there was at least 1 or 2 guns in the gun rack.
Yep.
There were guns in the trunks of cars, because it was just part of the culture. We growing up in grade school, we had Officer Friendly who would come in, and we would have gun safety training days.
Yep.
And we would go outside and out in the playground area, and they'd have a table set up, and they would teach the kids how to hold guns properly, how to shoot properly. And I know we only ever shot 22s, nothing in it, but
Sure.
That started in first grade.
Yep.
First grade, second grade, third grade, all the way through.
Yep.
It was so much a part of the culture that they figured, okay, well, we'll just make it part of, gun safety is an important thing for kids to understand,
Sure.
be mindful of, because we know that pervasively, pretty much every home has at least one firearm in it in this general area.
Sure.
It just was that common.
Yep.
Now in high school, and I was talking to you about this before we started here, we still had guys and gals who you got mad, you got angry, you went fisticuffs,
Sure.
Threw a few punches. No one ever for a second thought about going out to a truck or a car and grabbing a gun and coming back in. It just wasn't part of the mindset.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. You threw a few punches and you worked it out, and an hour later, you're sitting there eating lunch with the guy you were just throwing fists with.
Yeah, duking out, talking about it, kind of going from there. And my high school was the same way. Like we even to this day, I mean, I carry every day. And if I had an altercation, even a vehicle altercation, a road rage incident, the first thought in my mind is not to grab my gun. It's to deal with whatever situation's in front of me. Now, I carry it as a shield, obviously to protect my family, because there's a lot of shootings that do happen. But the shootings that happen are mostly by people who do not follow the rules to begin with. So they illegally get a gun. They don't know anything about it. They didn't grow up with it. So when you grow up with guns, it normalizes the fact that there's a gun in front of you. Now, if I were to put a gun in front of somebody, like somebody who grew up in, a place like downtown Chicago, where guns aren't really, really heavily, excited about down there. There's not a lot of ranges down there. It's very anti-gun in general. Where I bring a gun out and lay it on the table, everyone would freak out. Oh my God, it's going to shoot me. It's going to shoot me. Guns.
How?
Yeah. Guns don't just have legs, and they can't automatically just fire unless something's wrong with it, right? But there's so many steps and that's what I want to really focus on here today. There's so many steps to make whatever happens. Whether it takes going to the store, filling out a FOID, a card to get your FOID for state of Illinois. And I'm just going to stick this Illinois, and we're going to have a little conversation here about the Boulder, Colorado situation that just happened. And my heart does go out to the families.
It's very sad. Anytime something like that happens, it's senseless and it's sad.
Yeah, innocent loss of life is just not good any way around. I don't care what it's about, guns, car accidents, mistakes, any way, shape, or form. Innocent loss of life is definitely never acceptable in my eyes. But I want to kind of touch back to where it takes a person in Illinois to go get a FOID card. The FOID card, then, you have to wait in the mail for that. There's a huge, debate with Illinois right now, because FOID processes are taking forever. They're saying it's COVID. Other people are saying that it's not. And again, I'm not a political person, and I want to get into that.
My wife applied for hers, and it's probably going to be a good 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't remember what there's a law that they have on there that's supposed to, I think it's about 90 days they're supposed to process it or something. I think that's what they're going after.
I mean,
right
I
now.
remember when I got mine, they were saying, "Oh, it's going to be a long time." Like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It wasn't that big a deal. And it
Cool.
wasn't like I mean, I gotta have, there was no sense of urgency for getting that. It was
I
just,
have to get this gun right now.
Yeah.
That would be concerning to me, by the way. If someone tells me that they need a gun today, I would wonder why. Like right away would be my first question. Why do you need it today? Why can't you wait the 3 weeks for the process that it is? And
that's a good, and it's a valid question, I think,
So we wait whatever, 3 weeks, 12 weeks, a year, whatever the time frame is. You now need to find a store to buy it from. You need to find the price that it's at that meets your budget, if you have a budget in mind, and whatever else. You need to apply for a background check. If the background check comes back instantaneously, then great, you can get it within 3 days or whatnot. If it doesn't come back instantly, then you have to wait however long it is for the background check to come back, and then it can run concurrent with the 3 days. But typically before 3 days, you're not going to ever see any of that firearm or gun in your hand for less than 3 days.
No.
So you're waiting the void period. Now you're waiting the 3 days. You're buying bullets for it. So you have to buy bullets. Those bullets then have to match the gun that you're buying. You have to load that bullets into a magazine. And that magazine then has to be inserted into your whatever firearm you have, whatever gun you have. And then your safety has to be off. And then you have to point and pull a trigger. So what I'm trying to say here, and what I'm getting at, there's a lot of process to even shoot a gun to begin with, right? So, and there's a lot of stipulation on a lot of things right now. So I'm gonna swing off the facts part of it, because the facts are right now is you have to apply for a FOID card to get a gun.
Yeah, and one of the things you might want to mention is part of that application is a full background check. It's a criminal background check on you as a person.
And it's done by the Illinois State Police Department. It's not done by a third party. It's done by the Illinois Police Department. So there's a pretty big process to that.
And that, by the way, occurs even after you get your FOID card, every single time you make a firearm purchase.
Oh, every time. Yeah.
Here in the state of Illinois.
Yep, exactly. So now we talk about Colorado, and we talk about assault rifles. I would really like to know what the true definition of what an assault rifle is.
Would you like the actual definition of that?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Okay. Assault is an action. It's a physical action. It's an action with intent to do harm.
Okay.
So any instrument, any tool, any device I use to commit the action of assault is an assault, that instrument. It does not matter what type of, if it's a firearm, any firearm I use to commit an assault is an assault firearm because it's used in that action.
Cool.
However, if I use an assault sledgehammer, then that sledgehammer used in the action of committing an assault is an assault sledgehammer. If I use an ice pick, if I use a screwdriver, if I use a pair of scissors, if I decide to pick up a mug and throw it at someone's head across the room, that becomes then an assault mug. That's all that means. It's not a specific type of weapon or firearm. It's an action.
Perfect. So Boulder, Colorado. Thank you so much for that definition, because I couldn't say it better myself. Boulder, Colorado, the gentleman bought an AR-15 to commit this act of violence, crime, whatever it is.
And let people know that stands for articulating rifle, not assault.
Great. So I have an AR-15. I love it. It's one of my favorite guns I own. The amount of use that I get out of it at the range is incredible. The amount of versatility that I can use it while hunting, as well as home protection if I need to. The amount of accessories that are available for this gun is incredible. I have a 40-round magazine for this AR-15 personally. It weighs a lot, right? It weighs heavy. So our administration right now is talking about, and he came to, I believe it was Tuesday around 1:00. He called for a gun ban on assault weapons, and primarily the AR-15. But what you just stated kind of goes against that, right? that anything can be an assault weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'd like to really know what that means, assault weapon, if he's trying to ban the AR-15. An AR-15 on average, and for the real gun enthusiasts out there, I'm just throwing some averages out there, so don't hold me to these exact numbers. It's 3,700 feet per second. Okay, is the speed of that 5.56 coming out down the range.
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty fast.
That's a lot of speed.
It's a lot of speed. The 9mm is around, I'm going to say 1,200, 1,250. Again, this is just super average as well. 1,250 feet per second. Still pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
It's like 1,700 miles an hour or something crazy. And don't quote me on these numbers, please, because I don't have a cheat sheet in front of me. And I want to make sure that we're not talking factual. We're talking my opinions on things right now. So would you say the amount of damage in terms of killing a person would be the same as an AR-15 versus on a 9mm?
No, the result damage is
the end result.
The end result is the same. And then the end result is the same whether you're using a 22,
thank you,
22 LR, which is a very small comparatively round, but it also travels at a very high rate of speed for something that's small, over 1,000 feet per second.
Mm-hmm.
And that little 1,000 feet per second piece of lead
Yep.
will go right through your skull. It's
Easily.
not going to stop.
No. And the size of the bullet is still going to travel at a high rate of speed and still do the same damage, which is create death, right? So again, I'm not trying to any way, shape, or form say anything different other than the fact that the problem isn't guns. That AR-15 that this gentleman bought did not get up on its own, jump itself into his car, load itself, put the magazine into the AR-15 and go create harm. This guy is 21 years old and has been living for 21 years without any kind of, and here's the biggest problem that I have right now, because this is so new. We have no idea what this guy's intentions were, what his motivation is. I had heard through a couple different news sources that he was on an FBI watch list. And an FBI watch list doesn't mean that he's automatically bad. A lot of us could be on a watch list and not even know it. And then you get dropped off your watch list, which means that you're a law-abiding citizen and kind of going through there as well. The point I'm trying to make here with this is that he had intent to kill that day.
Yeah.
Okay. So whether it be a gun, an AR-15, a 9mm, a 22, any kind of gun, it still would have happened. Now, you're going to blame the gun, but at the same time, if guns weren't available and we lived in a world that banned guns across the country, that person still wants to kill people because he's got whatever going on, and they keep talking about mental issues, and we don't know that. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been proven. He hasn't been tested. We don't know that he had a mental illness. Maybe he has a political agenda that's against America. He has a political agenda against the person that was.
We just flat out don't know at this point.
There's so much stipulation that we can kind of go down a deep rabbit hole with this as well. What happens if you don't have a gun? What about a car? Now, if you hit a group of people with a Ferrari who's faster, more elegant, prettier, versus a Prius, the end result's still the same.
It's still the same.
It's still that.
And while we're on that note here, Kent Jones, we love Kent. Kent's an awesome, awesome dude. He says the Ruger AR-556 is a type of AR-15, the military style rifle that has been used in military style, by the way, style. It's not an actual military rifle. Style has been used in many other mass shootings. The pistol version is essentially the same weapon as the rifle, but with a shorter 10.5-inch barrel and an adjustable stabilizing brace on the back to aid in accuracy, balance, and recoil management, according to Ruger website. Yes, that is the style of rifle, and that's what that AR-15 is, a type of AR-15. You're correct. And then Jemima says, is the issue that more lives can be taken more rapidly with an AR versus a 22? Absolutely not. And I can tell you why on that too.
Shoot away. But, no, go right ahead. Yeah, I'm
good. Well, I actually have an MK22, and it is in the style of the scary black guns, but it's simply a 22 LR rifle. And it does have a 26 round magazine, and it will fire those 26 rounds as fast as I can pull the trigger. And if I put a red dot sight on it, I can pull that trigger extremely fast. It's a 22 LR. There is zero kick in that size of a 22 LR firearm, and it will hit the same exact spot that red dot is on every single time.
Yep.
So no, it doesn't matter what size the round is or what type of actual rifle it is. A smaller round can do just as much and just as much damage, which the end result is being dead. You can get just as dead with a 22 as you can with basically, what is it, a 70 millimeter round, which is essentially a 12 gauge slug, a 12 gauge shotgun slug.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we were just having a conversation earlier about shotguns in general. I mean, shotguns do a lot of damage.
Huge amount.
We were just talking about a slug. If you put downrange 5 or 6 slugs right away, you're going to feel that in your shoulder, especially if the bump stock's not, properly padded.
Yeah.
You're going to really feel that.
Oh yeah.
So my question is, so Ken, I want to touch on you real quick because you're talking about the military style rifle that has been used in other mass shootings. Why is that? So we have zero information on a lot of different things that kind of play out with mass shootings. And some of it is talked about and some of it's not. But at the end result, we as the public do not know the real intent unless that person goes out physically and says what their intentions were. My intentions were political, had nothing to do with blah, 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 whatever. So it's usually done behind closed doors or in a court of law where it should be held. And the public should just be known that it's our Second Amendment right to be able to bear arms, right? So when it comes down to a AR-556 or 223, which is essentially basically the same bullet, and we're going to really talk deep into that at some point in our show. But what about a 1911? 1911s were used in war.
Oh yeah.
That was your sidearm.
That was your sidearm.
So when your rifle was out and you needed to continue to shoot, you'd pull your sidearm out and continue to go.
And they went to the 45 ACP for stopping power. It doesn't travel near as fast as others, but it was for close range stopping power. It was to drop your target.
Yep.
That was the purpose, to disable your target
Correct.
from moving. Even if it wasn't a kill,
Mm-hmm.
it was a dropping. It was a dropping round.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right. Kent says the narrative states we have to blame the gun because if we blame the person or nationality or terrorist, we have a whole lot of oh boy on our hands. And then Lisa says, "Hi everyone, hi Lisa, how you
doing?" Here, Kent, that's a beautiful thing. So, are we going to ban McDonald's next, or any kind of fast food? Sorry to call it McDonald's. I don't want to do that, but are we going to ban fast food? Fast food's terrible. It's the reason America's obese. That's what they say.
Well,
you and me both. I love to eat. Okay, but are we going to ban all the foods that are unhealthy for us?
I think they tried banning soda in New York, and that didn't go over too well.
No. Okay. Yeah. So let's hypothetically
certain size drinks or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, the supersized stuff.
Yeah, it was a dumb thing
because it was a sugar content versus whatnot in there. And Mary Shep, hi Mary. And I'll get to your comment in just a second here. And speaking of food, Mary obviously has her own food show, and she's going to
Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 216 the net.
Yep. So if we start going down this rabbit hole, are we going to ban my Tesla because my Tesla does 164 miles an hour top speed? It can go that fast. It's my choice to continue to drive my car that fast. Are we going to ban motorcycles that are able to do 220 miles an hour stock? Are we going to ban? So we start this really nasty decline of what is right and what is wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we live in America, right?
Well, the United States of America.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So that's freedom. That's what America stands for. United States of America stands for freedom. Or it's supposed to stand for freedom.
Right. Yes. We live in a constitutional republic that is founded on the principles of living freely.
Great. So you can't have a gun now.
Well, oops. Sorry.
Yeah.
That doesn't fit within the scope of what we've, and this is, it's law. Correct. The amendments in our Constitution, those are actual laws.
Correct.
So if you don't like that law, a quorum of states have to agree to change that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's checks and balances, right? So we have a bunch of checks and balances so that one Democrat or Republican or views one side, left versus right versus middle. There's no one power. It's everyone is in power, and it's supposed to have checks and balances inside there. And I know this country right now is going through a lot of these political conversations, and we're not going to get into that because it's not what I'm trying to go towards. What I'm trying to go towards is the guns aren't the problem.
No,
it's the people.
It's the people.
Okay.
And with that, actually, that brings Mary's comment into some strong relevance. Why don't you go ahead and read that and then comment? Because I love her last sentence there.
Sounds good. In the same breath, Mary says, in the same breath, we used to tell people that they are amazing and they can achieve anything they set their minds to. We gasp when an unsettable mind...
Unstable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My bad. Unstable mind sets itself to do harm. If harm is the intent with enough incentive, an individual will find a way. Heroin is illegal and yet more readily available
than guns. Yeah.
So true, Mary. 100%. Agree.
Yeah. So again, guns in and of themselves are not the problem. They're pieces of plastic and metal and wood in some cases. If you've got a nice fancy
and plastic, polyurethane.
Yeah, polyurethane. Yeah. So in and of themselves, they are not the problem. It's what you choose to do with that tool is really the problem. And Mary says, "Do ban fast food. She'll cook for everyone. It'll be low salt, but it will be tasty.
Yeah,
I guarantee you that.
Amazing. Yeah. I can't get over the fact that there's low salt and it tastes awesome."
And Kent says Hollywood has sensationalized these types of guns as a weapon of mass destruction. That's very true. And scenes of wrecking buildings and cars and people. Most average Americans are undereducated on those weapons and can only see what they've been programmed to. That's a very good point because, again, just as you stated, new shooters, people who are new to it, are often scared.
Yes.
And
that's what this show is about. The show is to make you understand, Mary, how about that heroin? I'll call you. Good job, Ken. I mean, it's readily available if you want to. It's illegal. You shouldn't do it, but you still do it.
216 the net, nor Derek Baer and nor Bear Facts on Guns with Derek Baer. None of those above condone the use of nor sale of heroin or other illegal drugs or narcotics.
And we're not about anything illegal, right?
No,
we're talking about legal gun ownership. Yeah. I am not talking about going to buy your cousin's, 12-gauge shotgun that's sitting on the back of his truck. I'm talking about a legal purchase of guns. What I want to do is educate on how you can be safe with it. My biggest fear right now in this country is not the person that actually has the illegal gun or the destructive person that's robbing or shooting on the highways or any of these mass shootings. My biggest fear is the legal gun owner who's scared and using and buying a gun for the first time as a shield to protect their family.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is that they just go in, they fill out the paperwork. There's no training. There's no required training. And I really think there should be.
No, there's not.
Personally, I mean, I'm just going to speak personally. I'm not going to speak on the facts here. If you got in your car the first time you drove and your mom or your dad or whoever, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, wasn't there to teach you what the gas, brake, gear shifters, and how to signal properly was, we'd have a pretty messed up country when it comes down to driving.
It would be.
Can you imagine?
It would be terrifying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a vehicle can be an assault vehicle because you're using it in intent for assault as well. So we need to teach people how to use their firearms properly and the repercussions that it will be on from whatever happens with every bullet that you own. So,
all right. And I know that we're coming up on 6:30. Yep. If you would like to go longer today, that's fine. I don't mind. I mean,
we're on a good top of the conversation. We have a bunch of guests here. We can go a little bit longer.
Let's go a little bit longer. Kent asks, do you believe that there needs to be stronger gun control, stronger gun laws? Do you?
Ooh. Yes and no. So I'm not a cookie cutter kind of person, and I don't like blanket statements because I think every situation is different. I think your first gun should be required to have some kind of training to understand how to use it, how to load it, how to clean it, what the destructive power of that firearm or gun is. But at the same time, I don't want to infringe on my rights to be able to own a gun with my choice. It's my responsibility. I'm an adult. I make adult decisions. And with those adult decisions come consequences. And whether those consequences are positive or negative, I have to live with them as well. So to answer your question, I would strongly encourage. I don't think I would require, because I don't like the word require, because you're forcing me to do something. And I like my freedom. That's why I live here. That's why I grew up here, and I continue to stay here and stand behind our United States of America, is because I believe in our country. And I think we're going through a really politically motivated change. And I don't know what the outcome of it is. And again, we're not going to get into politics. But when it comes down to what I was talking about before, when you're driving your car for the first time, you don't just jump in the car and know what to do. You have no idea what it is. So I would like people to understand that any gun store you go into, again, here's my blanket statement, I hate them. Most gun stores are friendly, welcoming. They're willing to teach you. They have tons of classes. We had On Target Here West episode. I cannot thank them enough. Always a wonderful experience in there.
Tom was amazing. He's an absolutely amazing fella, Tom Dorsch.
Guy. Yeah. Really good guy. And Tom, he has so many training classes in there, and they're very inexpensive, and it's so worth the investment for your family. Because my biggest fear that I have right now in this country is all these stimulus checks, which brings a lot of people to buy firearms or guns, because it's now you have an extra $1,400 that you can go ahead and buy whatever you want. And I've been looking at this gun for a while, and I want to protect my family. The kids in the house or the family member in the house that's not used to it, that you leave it loaded, it's not in a safe, you don't store it properly, you don't protect your family properly. I don't want an accidental discharge and ruin someone's life over a gun, and then it becomes a gun conversation of, well, this gun was bad. No, it wasn't bad. You didn't train how to use it.
And you didn't make your family members aware of what the dangers are. Tony does ask, what about a mandatory class for new license holders? And
there is one, right?
Well, for concealed carry in the state of Illinois, for a concealed carry license, you have to go through 2 8-hour classes before you can even apply. And those classes, and successfully pass those classes, which has to be signed off by an instructor before you can even apply for your concealed carry, which again, at that point, you're going to go through a background check. Every single time you do something insofar as purchasing a firearm, getting your FOID card, purchasing a firearm, going through your concealed carry process, purchasing any other firearm, any of those, you get a background check here in the state of Illinois. So Illinois does require that you actually go through 16 hours of training for a concealed carry. Is that enough? It's something. Again, I grew up in Missouri. I told you about my very first purchase. I was 16 at a swap meet in an outdoor drive-in theater. I handed a guy $20. He handed me a 6.5 Carcano rifle and a box of shells. I slung the rifle on my back and continued shopping at the swap meet.
That's insane.
That's Missouri, sure. And that's just that normal of a part of life, and no one looked at me twice. Yep. People didn't care. And Shayna asks, how much does it cost someone for all the extra requirements? Derek, you've been through that. What was your expenditure on that?
I think the concealed carry class itself was like $350, but we're working with On Target right now and actually coming up with a plan for the show so that we can, get some of you listeners involved in it and be able to really make it affordable for you if we have enough people that wants to do it and go into it. And, obviously we'll talk about you guys' experience with that as well. The concealed carry itself is $150 for Illinois. It did take a little bit of time for me to get mine back, but it just showed up one day. There's a really easy process to be able to get online and fill out information. And every one of these steps, you just said it perfectly too. Every step of the process, there's a background check. So you're constantly being checked. So, maybe you have something that happens, a assault charge that comes up or a felony that comes up, it's going to get flagged, right? Yeah. And that's the whole point, is a stopping point to say, hey, we're not going to let you get a gun yet until you get through this process because you have an assault out there. And you can make gun laws as hard as you want, right? And me and you are going to go through and follow the rules, listen to how to do it, follow the mandated regulations, because we're legal gun owners. We care
Right.
about protecting our right
Correct.
to bear arms. The people that don't care about it are the people that are already owning the firearm, owning the gun illegally and shouldn't have it, to begin with. And there's nothing you can do about it, because when there's a will, there's a way. Even countries that have bans across guns. We were just talking about England.
Mm-hmm.
So England has a ban, or it's really hard to get a what was the word you used? Not civilian. It was
if as a subject, because
subject,
yes, you
that's it.
are a subject
Yes.
in Great Britain. You
too
are
funny.
not a citizen. You
Yep.
are still a subject. They are under. People don't understand this, but it is very true.
Yep.
It's you can get, it's a very long process, but you have what they call hunting firearms, and
Mhm.
they're a very specific class. They're a very specific type of firearm and weapon.
Sure.
And even the loads for them, the ammunition, the rounds are very, very specific to specific types of hunting.
Yeah.
So it's extremely controlled there. It's very difficult to get an actual firearm over there.
So do you think that there's still, and here's where we talk about this a lot, and social media and the media in general has really exposed a lot of things that go on in our country that if we were to look at 50 years ago and we were sitting here, would we know would be really going on other than the hearsay from the telephone is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Does that telephone really happen where eventually 6 months from now you might hear about this Colorado shooting, but now we're hearing about it the second it happens.
Right.
And then the media dives in, they throw in their 2 cents. I've read through a bunch of different articles across news feeds, and one of the things they keep saying is, well, his mental illness. How do you know he has a mental illness? Like, you've already presumed that he has a mental illness.
Yes, they're already presuming that.
Yes.
And because, of course, for people like you and I, and I'm going to presume, just like the media is presuming, everybody who's joined us here on the show today and over the Facebook feeds and the YouTube feeds, that we are responsible gun owners, and the idea of taking a life or many lives at once is reprehensible, and therefore just that action in and of itself is indicative of what we would imagine must be a mental illness, where in fact it may very well not be the case. We don't know.
Yep.
In this case, we simply don't know. So assessing if they would say, we are going to assess his mental capacity and assess his mental reasoning skills, and do a battery of sociopathic and psychopathic and
Sure.
Comprehensive moralistic tests, a battery of tests on this fellow.
Yeah.
That would be more accurate to say, rather than we are going to examine his level of mental illness. That's very presumptive.
Yeah, I'm going to presume right now too. And here's that. I heard that this person is from Syria. And what did we do last week in Syria?
Yeah, well, we dropped a little bit more than a few rounds of gunfire.
Cool. Not cool, by the way. I don't know the situation, and nor do I. Again, I'm not going to get into politics.
No, I knew you were saying cool in response to my answer of the question, not that it was a cool action.
Yeah, thank you very much for being really specific on that. How do we know that that's not the reason that he did this?
Right now, we don't.
Okay, so everything right now is assumption, and right now, what the country needs to realize is patience. Just like buying a firearm or a gun, it's patience. You don't jump in and go out and get the same gun that same day. You need to literally be patient. So right now we need to be patient because we need to let our justice system do its job and identify what the real issue is. And if it's done behind closed doors, and we might never know. Or if the person ends up, something bad happens in jail because, we have a great weird thing in this country where, something very blown up on the media then becomes just washed away, which happens a lot as well. So I would love to see this through from start to finish. And I'm going to follow this report very closely because he did buy a gun from a gun store.
Yeah, he went about it through the legal process that we do know right now.
Great.
For the state of Colorado.
Correct. And that could be completely different. And
could be completely different from Illinois. I don't know what Colorado's process is.
100%. And maybe it's just like Mississippi, where you just Missouri. Sorry, Missouri.
Which is
same kind of gun laws, actually, for both states.
Yeah.
But it could be like that, where you could just walk into a swap meet and do that. And so we're talking about federal. So the current administration, federal, banning assault rifles across the board. So you can't buy them in high round capacity magazines. It takes all of half a second or 1.2 seconds or 1.5 seconds to change out a magazine in a pistol, a 9mm pistol or a 22 as well. Same thing. And 22s actually can carry more than 10 rounds. Pistols, concealed carry weapons or guns or anything else you want to call it, can carry more than 10 rounds in them. If you carry 10 rounds, you can carry as many as I could be carrying 15 magazines on me right now, and you wouldn't know.
I have a Sky CPX2, which is a pistol. It's a 9mm, and it comes brand new with 2 magazines. Each magazine holds 10 rounds.
Yep.
And it Kent, you goof. Well, Kent, actually, many people who are wanting new gun laws and stricter gun regulations have no idea on how they would change them. True. Shayna, with regard to the conversation we were having about the fella, I'll bet you $1. And and you'd probably be right, but we don't know. We're presuming. We're being very presumptuous right now because we don't have all the details.
We're just following the media, right?
Yeah,
so the
we're just following. So we're only
throwing out the news story.
Yeah,
so we're just throwing out a news story here of what it could be. You know?
And then Kent shares that he owns a BB gun that pumps. This too can be an assault weapon. It can do more than poke an eye out if I have the intent. And you're right. I actually have a silly, ridiculous collection of BB and pellet guns because I can go in my backyard and go plink, plink, plink all day long.
Yep. And
I tell you, plinking with a BB is phenomenally cheaper than plinking with a 22.
Very true.
And my favorite firearm, and I told you this before, is my 22 LR wheel gun. It's a single action.
Yep.
And
love it.
I absolutely love it. It is not anything you would ever use with the intent of protection.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's simply fun. It holds 6 rounds. It's an old 6-shooter.
Yep.
That's all it is.
I would love to take one of the anti-gun people that are just so against guns and literally just bring them to a range in the safest way possible where they're comfortable to just shoot it once. And I would bring that 22. My wife has a 22 Ruger Wrangler, single action, 6 rounds. I love that thing.
Oh yeah,
it's so cool. It's like driving a stick car from the from the 70s or the 80s, where it's really a stick car. Not nowadays where you have these paddle things. As I drive an electric car, so I shouldn't talk anymore. But I grew up on a stick shift car, so
I did too. That was my very first car, was manual transmission.
One of the 10% left in America and the United States of America that can drive a standard car.
Really, that's all.
It's gone down that much. I just read a statistic on it the other day. Again, I don't know if it's a fact. I read it online. This is where we're at nowadays. I can't even believe anything I read anymore. It's so frustrating to me.
Holy cow.
Because I'm trying to dig up facts and be factual about certain statements and make sure that the information's correct. But when there's so much media skewing going on and it's all about just get rid of guns, that's not going to solve the problem of murder. Murder is people. Yeah. People murder people.
And see, Shayna, to your point right there, Shayna even says you can't mandate intention for sure.
No, not at all.
You can't. At that point, you're mind police.
Yes.
So, and Kent says, no one is talking about the bulletproof vest this man was wearing either. If I put on a vest, I'm expecting a shootout. If I have enough sense to strap on a vest, I probably know exactly what I am doing.
Unless you have mental illness.
But again, I mean, there is a level of actions denote comprehension.
For sure.
And so, if you're going to strap on a vest and you're preparing for this, you're like, okay, I'm expecting to exchange fire and possibly to receive fire in return. So,
this guy's in custody, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so he didn't end up dying or getting
he's actually in custody, and that's why his lawyers want his mental capacity reviewed.
Great. So then lawyers are going to do what the lawyers get paid to do, which is they're going to interpret the law. They're going to, divulge it. And again, our justice system is the way that it is right now. And I believe in our justice system, and I have to, because if I don't believe in my justice system, I'm not going to follow it.
No.
So although there's things about it that I don't agree on, and that's my opinion on it.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, we have to trust our justice system. We have to trust that the prosecutors are going to follow the evidence, really dig into what they need to, and make sure that we hold this person accountable for the fullest extent of the law. My side of it, what I care about is the mental state of how we got to that place. Because right there is where we need to find out where the disconnect is. So was he talking about this? Did he talk about it to the gun store and say, hey, what's the best gun to go kill, 50 people? And if the gun store says, oh, that'd be great, let's give you an AR-15. That gun store might be a little bit responsible for the conversation that, the red flag that kind of popped up.
A little bit. Shayna says the timing seems to come on the heels of a waning public
Shayna, you're
panic level.
Our level right now.
Shayna, you're 100% correct. And I even made a comment to Derek about this before the show started. Yep. It is interesting that we see two incidents back to back. The one fella who hit the massage parlors, and then this fella who hit the grocery store.
Did you hear about the one in Atlanta recently too?
Is that the massage parlor fella?
No, this was actually just recently. They actually caught the guy before he went on a shooting spree. He had
that's the one you were talking about a little bit earlier.
Five guns in possession. It was an Instacart place. Store manager of Instacart went into the bathroom, noticed a bunch of rustling, found this gentleman. He was putting on a bulletproof vest. He had rounds. He had weapons, and got caught. And this store manager should be praised because he followed the human curiosity to find out, like, hey, this seems out of place. Something doesn't seem right. I'm going to ask you a personal question. Did you have that kid in high school that you worried about?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
more than one.
Oh, correct. We did too. So did you ignore that guy?
Oh, no.
Oh, did you talk to him?
Oh, all the time.
Cool.
Hey, Steve. I shouldn't say that.
I mean, you didn't say his last time, so it could be whoever it is.
Yeah.
But, we all have that person. I did the same thing, actually. So
Stenbowski, but whatever. Anyway, But I mean, no, that's not his name, and I just
yeah.
But yeah, would check in him all the time. I actually invited him to go to things with my family and I.
Perfect.
There were a couple of people. There was another guy who. I mean, yes, we had more than one. Sure. So yeah.
You just knew, right?
You knew, but we engaged.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. So the weird kid in class, the kid that sit in the back with the blacked out hoodies and the weird outfits, and I call them weird to me because they weren't my style. So obviously everything that's different than me is weird because that's just how I am. It's not that they're physically weird. But the person that people talked about behind each other's backs, as a child, as an adolescent, teenager, and in that world. The world we live in now is so drawn in by Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all that kind of stuff, that when cyberbullying can be just as bad as physical bullying, except it's worse because your audience is so much bigger. So when you post on someone's wall that you're fat, all your friends see that person posted that you're fat, you get a little self-conscious about it. So I call that a nick. You get a nick in your ego. You get a nick in your personality. You get a nick in how your self-esteem towards a person. And when you're an adolescent, those nicks hurt a little more because you don't know how to process emotion properly. You haven't really grown up. And there's some of it that's good because you're going to toughen up your skin. And if your boss comes in and yells at you that you suck and he's having a bad day, you're not gonna get mad at your boss and punch him in the face. You're going to probably have a healthy conversation like, hey, is everything okay? You usually don't walk in here and yell at me like that.
For the most
part, I'm having a really
yeah.
bad day.
Yeah.
There's a point in time, and it's a Swiss cheese model, so everything lines up properly, and your Swiss cheese aligns, and that bullet goes through the hole all the way through to end up where we're at.
Yeah.
This 21-year-old, I'm assuming, didn't wake up that morning and say, you know what? I'm going to go buy a gun today. I'm going to buy bullets for it. I'm going to load my magazine with a high-capacity magazine because I want the maximum infliction of pain. And then he walked into the store and he killed people. Not in one day.
No.
It's highly unlikely. So it's possible. Again, the world we live in, we have to live in possibilities. It's possible. It's highly unlikely that happened. There is probably a major step, 21 years of whatever this guy's life needs to be dissected to find out exactly what motivated him to do this.
Right.
Because there's our key, right, is the people. So how do we touch on the people to educate that guns are dangerous. Your actions have consequences, and those consequences are deadly. Now, we have 10 people, right, that have died. 10 lives are impacted. So we have 10 families that are missing fathers and missing mothers and children. There's nothing worse in this world than losing a kid because of an innocent killing. It's horrible. So I'm not condoning the fact that this is the worst thing ever to happen for Boulder, Colorado. What Shannon just said is it's perfectly timed for conversations that right now is motivated around what the current administration is, which is to ban firearms, ban assault rifles, ban high capacity. They're talking about buybacks. You're going to take back my AR-15 because
if they want to buy back, they better give you the full retail price you paid.
Plus interest.
Plus interest, because these things are not cheap.
No, not at all. And I've customized it exactly for me, how I want to carry it, how I want to go to the range and shoot it. Notice how I said that. Go to the range.
Yeah.
I'm not going into public with my AR-15. And if I want to, that's my right. But my intention is not to go cause harm to people. So we need to find out how to get to that psychological point.
Yeah.
And there's no right answer. That's
well, and that's the thing, and that's the key. And I think, one of the things you touched on is, again, the 21 years of this kid's life.
Yep. We have no idea what this kid did.
Yeah, what happened, and where does it start, and when do you start planning? And again, I grew up where we had gun safety in grade school. Why don't we have that anymore? Why did that disappear? They don't have
shop class anymore. They don't have mechanics. I mean, a couple high schools still have mechanics class. They don't have any of that.
Sure, they don't have shop anymore?
There's a lot of schools
that have wood shop, electronics shop.
No, because if you chop a kid's finger off, that parent's going to sue the school district because you chopped finger off from using a sawzall.
I'll tell you something off the air.
Go ahead. Okay, go on.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to cop to this on the air.
Okay, great. But I'm just saying, you learn how to do certain things in school. And do I agree that every single school should do gun safety? No, because I think it individualizes per town. I don't think a place like Chicago should introduce a gun safety course in school. I don't think it's going to be very good.
That would probably not.
I don't think anybody's going to take it because their parents don't believe in guns anyway and don't think you should have them. So they're not going to push that class onto their kids. But a place like Wisconsin,
sanitize all the triggers out of a person's environment. It just doesn't work like that. No, you can't.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. I don't know. I mean, by and large, it's going to have to start somewhere, and it's got to start with education,
100%,
and understanding and looking at it and understanding it as a tool, a device, and what you want to use it for. And Kent says the issue is we try to rationalize the irrational. Well, yeah, you're true. We try to think through the insanely, and you can't. You're absolutely right. We then can only blame one common denominator, the gun, and that's what everybody does. You're right. You look at that, and here we are sitting, and we're talking about why aren't we dissecting this? And again, you cannot examine, we as laymen, because I'm not a psychiatrist.
Me neither.
We cannot examine this fellow from our point of view and forcefully try to make sense out of what he did, because it makes no sense. This is a sense. That's why it's called a senseless act of violence.
Exactly.
It makes no sense because for us, it is senseless. Therefore, we cannot, by its very nature, understand why this occurred. We know that it did, and you're exactly right. It needs to be dissected. And then we can maybe start to treat the real symptom, the real cause, and maybe then not see these things, but or see much less of them.
We're a smart country, right? We have a lot of smart people, a lot of smart psychologists. We have a lot of smart doctors. We have a lot of smart economists and politicians and all of that. My fear right now is that the people that need to be involved in these conversations with this individual to dive deep are being restricted from that conversation. Yeah. So that restriction then doesn't let the dissection happen. And then eventually it just kind of, okay, the event's over, on to the next big event because it's newsworthy and we want to blow up out of the portion and we have a hidden agenda for getting rid of something like guns. So we're going to focus on that right now. But, it is sad for those people. We're going to move on. We're going to push it off to the side. And in the common denominator, Ken, I just want to throw this out there. The common denominator is actually not the gun. What is it? People.
Yeah.
That's the common denominator. Is the human race has its own brain, its own mind, and its own intentions, whether they're good intentions or bad intentions. The identification of those bad intentions is what we really need to focus on. And like I said earlier, we as legal gun owners, with the intention of having fun with our firearms, using our firearms as a shield, not as an assault rifle or any kind of assault weapon, we know our intentions are good. At the same time, to be able to restrict that completely takes away from our freedom and takes away from our constitutional rights.
Yeah.
What's next? You're going to take away my driver's license because I have too many tickets. Well, that does happen, and there's repercussions for that, but I can get my license back. You get your license revoked because you have too many DUIs or DWIs or whatever it is. There's repercussions to those actions as well.
But note that a driver's license is a privilege,
100%,
not a right.
Correct.
We have noted that owning firearms is a right that's been established by law through the Second Amendment.
Yep.
So if we need to change that to a privilege, then that's that has to go through legislation and through a quorum of states to amend that particular amendment. And we are coming up here now on about 3.5 minutes to an hour, and I will have to call it on the hour because I actually have to get rolling here. Shayna, it also gives the illusion that anti-gun options are the majority. That is an illusion out there. And Kent says the FBI hires ex-cons to understand how those folks think. So that's exactly correct. That's very true. Mm-hmm. So why do we think we know what this guy was thinking? Man, I'm starting to sound like Lisa Eflin. And I think Lisa should take that as a compliment. She's running off. She's rubbing off on Kent. Derek, what would you like to say about next week's show?
Next week's show, I am going to bring in, I'm trying to get in a couple female new gun owners in here with me. I have a brand new email address as well, derek@thebearfactsonguns.com. Please email me if you're interested in coming on the show and talk about your experience with firearms, pro or con. So if you're for guns or against guns, it's an open invite. I really want an anti-gun person to come in to talk and have a healthy conversation. That's literally what I want.
Awesome. And for real quick, if you'd like to reach Derek and talk to him more about this subject, Derek@thebearfactsonguns.com. Shoot him a note. Beautiful. Shoot him a message, shoot him an email there. Meanwhile, we'll say thank you once again to Gold Shield Services, goldshieldtoday.com, 847-865-HVAC for all your HVAC needs, goldshieldtoday.com. Until next week, he's been
Derek Baer.
Yeah, and he'll probably still be Derek Baer.
I will.
Even after the show ends.
So true.
So there you go. We'll see y'all next time.